Hello friends. Now in the previous lecture, we have discussed about the pressure vessels and the safety aspects, especially related to the SMPV rule, the different definitions, then different aspects, different components, then fittings, distance criteria, etc. And now we are going to discuss about these pressure vessels and the safety aspects in a general way. So assessment of reliability and pressure vessel related testings are the main concerns, because in the historical part we were knowing that there were many boiler explosions, and nowadays after forming a ASME and some other standards, some legal references and some IS standards, this number is reduced. So after preparing these guidelines and following these guidelines by all the countries as well as by the organizations, the number of accidents and the incidents are reduced. So what exactly the testing techniques which is used under these pressure vessels? So there are two types of testing, that is pressure test, and second is NDT, that is non-destructive test. So in the pressure test, basically the hydraulic test is preferred by the competent person, and in case if the hydraulic test is not feasible, then the competent person may go for the pneumatic test or the combination of this hydraulic and pneumatic test. Then another option is NDT, that is non-destructive test. So in the NDT, that may include a radiography, a dye penetration test, magnetic particle, and ultrasonic test, etc. So we know that without disturbing the test can be done, that is called as NDT. So these are the different points which are covered under this NDT. So we have already discussed this NDT and their details of all the tests in detail in one of the video. You can go through that. So in the pressure test, so these are the main two tests, that is hydraulic and pneumatic. So under hydraulic test, water is used to pressurize the vessel for this hydraulic test. By a hand pump, the pressure is gradually increased step by step and then stopped. So observe any leakage, if any, and again increase, then test pressure is 1.3 to 1.5 times the design pressure. So we already discussed what exactly the design pressure is, and we have allowed to increase maximum up to 1.1% of the design pressure. But for the hydraulic test, we are increasing this test pressure up to 1.3 to 1.5 times the design pressure. So in the pneumatic test, the testing is done by the air or steam or gas pressure. It is more hazardous as air, steam or gas are more compressible than the water and contains are more energy at equal pressures. So this is dangerous one, and that is why generally the competent persons are preferred this hydraulic test. So after the test, whatever the format is given by that referred standards or that rule, competent person is going to give that test report in the prescribed format. Then in the pneumatic test, this test is useful where even traces of water can't be tolerated in its service, or where vessel is so designed that or supported that it can't be safely filled with the water. So if the water is not feasible in that pressure vessel, then and then only we are going for the pneumatic test. So pneumatic test pressure should be more than the design pressure, but less than the hydraulic pressures. So it is in between 1.1 and 1.3 generally. Then what are the fundamentals of this pressure vessel design? So we have already discussed in the previous lecture, that IS 2825 is the main standard for this pressure vessel designs. So section 1 includes in its design section general provisions, corrosion, erosion and protections, cylindrical and spherical shells, and the code also explains the material of construction, allowable stresses, material for low temperature service, and material for welding. It also explains the flange calculations for non-standard flanges, design, marking, capacity, setting, installations, and discharge lines of pressure relieving devices are also specified. So there are various details related to this pressure vessel under this IS 2825. This is the basic formula for the code, that is for the pressure vessel design. So we have to calculate the thickness of that pressure vessel. That is one of the main parameter. So for the cylindrical shells, this is the formula, that is P into DI upon 200 Fg minus P equal to P into DO upon 200 Fj plus P. And for the spherical shells, T is equal to P into Di upon 400 Fj. Now instead of this 200, it is 400 Fj minus P equal to P DO 200 instead of 400 now. 400 Fj plus P. So T is the minimum thickness of shell plates and P is the design pressure in kg per centimeter square. Di is the inside diameter of the shell in mm. DO is the outside diameter of the shell in mm. F is the allowable stresses value in kg per mm square, and J is the joint factor or the efficiency. So this is the fundamental or the basic formula for the pressure vessel design. So other formulas and other parts I'm not going to discuss in detail. I'm going to discuss only the fundamental one. So the pressure system is one of the concept. So pressure is equal to the force divided by area. P is equal to F by A, which we have learned in the school level itself. So according to the Pascal's principle, in a hydraulic system, a pressure system exerted on a piston produces an equal increase in pressure on another piston in the systems. So due to this pressure, there may be hazards of steam. So we are using this pressure in the pressure vessels, and that is why this system is called as pressure systems. So what are the hazards of steam? Because mainly when we are talking about the pressure vessel, it is generally a boiler systems or a fired pressure vessels. So if it is the case, then the slips and falls is one of the biggest hazards of any steam systems, is the risk of injury to employees due to slip and fall hazards. Then steam leaks, ruptured pipes, and financial losses. These are the different hazards of the steams. Then there is a concept that is called as steam explosion. So this is the explosion caused by violent boiling or flashing of water into steam. So from this picture, you can understand how exactly the violent boiling is or flashing of water into the steam. So this occurs when water is either superheated, rapidly heated by fine hot debris produced within it, or heated by the interaction of molten metals. So it may occur in the industry. The idea regarding the steam explosion. So it is the seawater which is reacted or mixed with the volcano. And as the high temperature in the volcano is there, that is why water is going to flash or there is a chances of violent boiling. And that is why the explosion is occurred, and that explosion is called as steam explosion. So which can be occurred in the industries also, especially when it is related to the high temperatures or the fine hot debris. Then these are the different properties of LPG. that is liquid petroleum gas or liquefiable petroleum gas. So it is twice as heavy as air and half as heavy as water. It is colorless, odorless, and hence an odorant is used to detect the leaks. Then it can be compressed at a ratio of 1:250, which enables it to be marked in portable containers in liquid form. It is safe fuel and ignites only when the LPG air ratio becomes 2 to 9%. It is having a high calorific value, that is 11,900 kilocalorie per kg, which results in high efficiency heat output. The liquefaction of gases for bulk storage. So liquefactions of gases is a physical conversion of a gas into liquid. So nowadays in these COVID-19 situations, you know about the oxygen cylinders, oxygen tankers, etc. And for that purpose, this liquid oxygen is important. And that is why this oxygen gas is going to convert into liquid state so that we can transport the high volume oxygen gas in terms of liquid. So that process is called as liquefaction. So generally it is called as condensation, but basically liquefaction wording is used for converting the gases into liquid, and the condensation is a process where we are converting vapors into liquid. The processes are used for scientific, industrial, and commercial purposes. The liquefaction of gases is a complicated process that uses various compressions and expansions to achieve high pressure and very low temperatures. And the uses of these liquefactions are the liquid oxygen, which I have already discussed, that is specially provided for the hospitals for conversion of gas for the patients with breathing problems. And liquid nitrogen is used in the medical field for cryosurgery. So these are the different examples or the uses of liquid oxygen and liquid nitrogens for the hospitals and cryosurgery. So liquefied chlorine is transported for eventual solution is water, after which it is used for the water purification, sanitation of industrial waste, sewage and swimming pools, bleaching of pulp and textile, manufacturing of carbon tetrachloride, glycol, and numerous other organic compounds as well. So different components can be produced with the help of this liquid oxygen, liquid nitrogen, and liquid chlorine. Then there is one concept that is called as relevant fluid. So what is relevant fluid? Steam or any fluid or mixture of fluids which is at a pressure greater than 0.5 bar above the atmospheric pressure. That is called as relevant fluid. Another definition of the relevant fluid is a liquid which would have a vapor pressure greater than 0.5 bar above atmospheric pressure when in equilibrium with its vapor at either the actual temperature of the liquid or 17.5 degrees Celsius, or a gas dissolved under pressure in a solvent contained in a porous substance at ambient temperature and which could be released from the solvent without the application of it. So that is the pressure as well as the temperature conditions from which we can understand what exactly the relevant fluid is. Then there may be a chances of system failure, that is this pressure vessel or the pressure system can fail. What does it mean? It means the unintentional release of stored energy from the pressure system. That is nothing but the system failure related to the pressure systems. So that may result different fatalities and serious injuries, causes the major damage to the property. And sometimes it is also related, or you can refer with the CDG-CPL, that is carriage of dangerous goods and classification, packaging and labeling regulations. So in that rule also, that system failure definition is given as these pressurized chemicals may be transported, and these pressurized chemicals may be dangerous goods. And that is why the different regulations are there to control all this system failure. What are the hazards of overpressure or over temperature in the pressure systems? So there may be a leak, pulsation, vibrations. The most serious hazards is pressure vessel is the potential for cracking, which can lead to leak or to complete rupture, consequences of which include blast effect due to sudden expansion of vessel contents, or there may be a chances of fire and explosions. So if the pressure is beyond the limit or the temperature is beyond the limit, then there may be a chances of leakages, rupturing, blasting, fire and explosion. So these are the general checklist which is given for the pressure vessel. So the inspection or the checklist may be as the external inspections. So you can go through the inspection of cracks, overheating, deformation, leakages, etc. So we are going to inspect all the parts of this pressure vessel externally, right? Then there may be a structural inspections. So we have to check the connections, corner joints, lap joints, welding of the cylindrical shell and shell cover, etc. So we have to inspect these structure points. So that is structural inspection. Then there may be a geometric dimension inspections. So we have to check the diameter, thickness or some other dimensions. That is called as geometric dimension inspections. Then we can go for the surface defect inspections. So with the help of different testings or with the help of entities testings or some other methods, we can test these surface defects also. Then there may be a wall thickness measurements. So due to the erosion aspects, the thickness may be reduced, and that is why we have to measure the wall thickness also. And then we can also check the material. So depending on the type of material and the characteristics of material, we have to check whether the material characteristics are the same or there may be a change after the corrosion. Then we can check the coating layer also. So we have already discussed about the cladding concept, lining concept, etc. And from that point of view, we have to check whether all these coatings are in a good condition or not. Then there may be a welding seam hidden defects. So that should be inspected. There may be a safety accessories that should be inspected. There may be a fastener and that should be inspected. So there are various points and there are details under this checklist of the inspections. So you can go through these different aspects of the inspection checklist for the pressure vessels. So this is related to the especially for the maintenance of the pressure vessels. So maximize the awareness, follow all safety protocols, protective devices installations, inspect it anyway, replace when necessary, and install safety equipments. So these are the general safety or the maintenance and safety points related to the pressure vessels. So this is all about the pressure vessels and their safety aspects. Thank you. Thank you very much.